It is the way you document and preserve evidence from the time that you started the cyber forensics investigation to the time the evidence is presented at court or to your executives in the case of an internal investigation. It is extremely important to be able to show clear documentation of how the evidence was collected, when it was collected, how it was transported, how it was tracked, how it was stored, and who had access to the evidence and how it was accessed. If you fail to maintain a proper chain of custody, it is likely you cannot use that evidence in court. It is also important to know how to dispose of evidence after an investigation. Maintaining the data integrity is also a very important piece of the process. When you collect evidence, you must protect its integrity. This involves making sure that nothing is added to the evidence and that nothing is deleted or destroyed. This is known as evidence preservation. A method often used for evidence preservation is to only work with a copy of the evidence. In other words, not directly working with the evidence itself. This involves creating an image of a hard drive or any storage device. Several forensics tools are available on the market, such as Guidance Software's EnCase and Access Data's Forensics Toolkit. There are several open source tools and Linux distributions that can be used for digital forensics. Examples include Security Onion, Kane, Sift, and others. Another methodology used in evidence preservation is to use write-protected storage devices. In other words, the storage device you are investigating should immediately be write-protected before it is imaged and should be labeled to include the following: investigator's name, the date when the image was created, and the case name or number, if applicable. Additionally, you must prevent electronic static or other discharge from damaging or erasing evidentiary data. Special evidence bags that are anti-static should be used to store digital devices. It is very important that you prevent electrostatic discharge and other electrical discharges from damaging your evidence. Some organizations even have cyber forensics labs that control access to only authorized users and investigators. One method often used involves constructing what is called a Faraday cage. This cage is often built out of a mesh of conducting material that prevents electromagnetic energy from entering into or escaping from the cage. Also, this prevents devices from communicating via Wi-Fi or cellular signals. Transporting the evidence to the forensics lab or any other place, including the courthouse, has to be done very carefully. It is critical that the chain of custody be maintained during this transport. When you transport the evidence, you should secure it in a lockable container. It is also recommended that the responsible person stay with the evidence at all times during the transportation. Computer memory is any physical device capable of storing information in a temporary or permanent state. Memory can be volatile or non-volatile. Volatile memory is memory that loses its contents when the computer or hardware storage device loses power. RAM is an example of volatile memory. That's why you never hear people say they are saving something to RAM. It's designed for application performance. You might be thinking that there isn't a lot of value for the data stored in RAM. However, from a digital forensics viewpoint, the following data can be obtained by investigating RAM, such as running processes, who is logged in, passwords in clear text, unencrypted data, instant messages, registry information, executed console commands, attached devices, open ports, listening applications. Non-volatile memory, NVRAM, on the other hand, holds data with or without power. EEPROM would be an example of non-volatile memory. When it comes to incident response, there are many stakeholders involved. It is important to identify those stakeholders before an incident happens. According to NIST SP 800-61, it is important to identify groups within the organization that may need to participate in incident handling so that their cooperation can be solicited before it is needed. Every incident response team relies on the expertise, judgment, and abilities of others, including management, information assurance, IT support, legal, public affairs and media relations, human resources, business continuity planning, and physical security and facilities management. Let's dig into these a bit more. Management establishes incident response policy, budget, and staffing. Ultimately, management is held responsible for coordinating incident response among various stakeholders, minimizing damage, and reporting to Congress, OMB, the General Accounting Office, GAO, and other parties. Information security staff members may be needed during certain stages of incident handling, prevention, containment, eradication, and recovery. For example, to alter network security controls such as firewall rule sets. IT technical experts, or system and network administrators, not only have the needed skills to assist, but also usually have the best understanding of the technology they manage on a daily basis. Legal experts should review incident response plans, policies, and procedures to ensure their compliance with law and federal guidance, including the right to privacy. In addition, the guidance of the General Counsel or legal department should be sought if there is reason to believe that an incident may have legal ramifications, including evidence collection, prosecution of a suspect, or a lawsuit, or if there may be need for a memorandum of understanding or other binding agreements involving liability limitations for information sharing. Public relations and media relations, depending on the nature of impact of an incident, a need may exist to inform the media and by extension the public. Human resources, if an employee is suspected of causing an incident, the Human Resources Department may be involved, for example, in assisting with disciplinary proceedings. Business continuity planning. Organizations should ensure that incident response policies and procedures and business continuity processes are in sync. Computer security incidents undermine the business resilience of an organization. Business continuity planning professionals should be made aware of incidents and their impacts so that they can fine-tune business impact assessments, risk assessments, and continuity of operations plans. Further, because business continuity planners have extensive expertise in minimizing operational disruption during severe circumstances, they may be valuable in planning responses to certain situations such as denial of service conditions. Lastly, physical security and facilities management. Some computer security incidents occur through breaches of physical security or involve coordinated logical and physical attacks. The incident response team also may need access to facilities during incident handling. For example, to acquire a compromised workstation from a locked office.
That were created to help organizations to establish a computer security incident response program and also to learn how to handle cybersecurity incidents effectively and also efficiently, right? So one of the best resources available is the National Institute of Standards and Technology, or NIST, Special Publication 800-61. That publications can be obtained from the URL that I'm showing in the screen. Now, this is actually one of the most comprehensive and also used resources out in the industry, right? So NIST developed these special publications due to a statutory responsibility under the Federal Information Security Management Act, or FISMA, and you will learn the basics of the guideline provided in NIST here, but I will invite you to read that document and become familiar with it, with all the specific topics discussed in that publication, not only to prepare for the exam, but also as you form your incident response teams and as you enhance your career in incident response and incident management, right? So now, before you learn the details about how to create a good incident response program, you must understand what are security events and what is an incident, right? So according to NIST and that special publications, the 800-61, an event is an observable occurrence in a system or a network, right? So events include a user connecting to a file share, a server receiving a request for a web page, a user sending an email, and a firewall blocking a connection attempt, right? So now adverse events are events with negative consequences, such as a system crash or packet floods, denial of service condition, unauthorized use of system privileges, unauthorized access to sensitive data, and execution of malware that destroys data, right? So those are examples of adverse events and negative events, and of course there are many others, right? Now, according to the same document, a computer security incident is a violation or imminent threat of violation of computer security policies, acceptable use policies, or standard security practices, right? Having a good incident response plan and incident response process, will help you minimize loss or theft of information, and also disruption of services caused by incidents, right? So it will also help you enhance your incident response program by using lessons learned and information obtained during the security incident, right? Now, the specific section within the NIST Special Publication 800-61 that goes over the incident response policies is section 2.3, right? And it again goes over the incident response policies, the specific plans and procedures, including information on how to coordinate incidents and interact with outside parties, right? So the policy elements include many things like a statement of management, commitment, the purpose and objective of the incident response policy, the scope of the incident response policy, as well as the definition of the computer security incidents and related terms, right? So organizational structure and definition of roles and responsibilities, and also the level of authority is also covered in that document, right? So it provides guidelines on how to prioritize, and put severity ratings on a specific incidents within your organization, right? And it goes over how to perform reporting and contact forms as well. Now, the NIST incident response plan elements include, things like the incident response plan mission, strategies and goals of the incident response plan, senior management approval of the incident response plan, organizational approach to incident response, and how the incident response team will actually communicate with the rest of the company, so with the rest of the organization, and even within other organizations, outside of your corporation or your organization, right? So it also covers how to perform metrics for measuring incident response capabilities and also the effectiveness of that incident response process and plan, right? It goes over the roadmap for maturing the incident response capability and how the program fits in the overall organization, right? So now NIST also defines the standard operating procedures, or SOPs, as a delineation of the specific technical processes, techniques, checklists, and forms used by the incident response team, right? Those standard operating procedures, or SOPs, should be reasonable, comprehensive, and also detailed to ensure that the priorities of the organizations are reflected in the response operations, right? Yeah, so that's the guideline by the NIST Special Publication 800-61, right? So this document also goes over the major phases of the incident response process in detail, right? You should become with that, again, familiar with that publication, as it provides additional information that will help you succeed in your Security Operations Center or your SOC. And on the other hand, I'm actually going to summarize the most important key points here, right? So the first one is the major phases of the incident response process, right? And the first phase is the preparation phase, right? In the preparation phase, it includes things like creating and training the incident response team, as well as deploying the necessary tools and resources to be able to successfully investigate and resolve cybersecurity incidents, right? In this phase, the incident response team actually creates a set of controls based on the results of risk assessments. Now, during the preparation phase, you also include, some of the following, right? So the first one is actually creating processes for incident response handlers, right? So, and also the communications that the incident handler will actually, execute and take place, all communication management and communication strategies. Also the facilities that will host the Security Operations Center and the incident response related team, right? Now, it also goes over making sure that the organization has the appropriate incident analysis hardware and software, as well as incident mitigation software to actually, of course, mitigate cybersecurity incidents, right? The preparation phase also goes over how to create risk assessment capabilities within the organization, and it also goes into making sure that the organization has a properly deployed host and also network security and of course, malware prevention solutions as well, right? So the preparation phase also goes over how to develop user awareness, training, and also training for your incident response team as well, right? Now, the second phase is the detection and analysis phase, right? And the detection and analysis phase is one of the most challenging phases. While some incidents are actually easy to detect, right? Like a denial service attack, of course, you will detect that immediately. Many breaches and attacks are actually left undetected for weeks, and in some cases even months, or even if they're detected at all, right? So this is why detection may be the most difficult task in incident response, right? Now, NIST provides several recommendations for making incident analysis easier and more effective, and I'm actually sharing the listing here. That actually includes things like profile networks and systems, understanding what are actually normal behaviors so you can identify what is not normal, creating a log retention policy, performing event correlation, maintaining and using a knowledge base of information so your team actually can share the knowledge and actually use them, and also using internet search engines for research, running packet sniffers to collect additional data, filtering data, keeping host clock synchronized, and the list goes on and on, right? So I included here all this for your reference. Now, the next phase is the containment, eradication, and recovery phase. And in this phase, they include things like evidence gathering and handling, identifying the attacks or the attacking host, right? So attribution of what are the hosts that are part of that attack, choosing a containment strategy to effectively contain and eradicate the attack, as well to be able to successfully recover from, that attack. Now, that document from NIST also defines, different criteria for determining the appropriate containment, eradication, and recovery strategy, right? So here I'm actually sharing those, the different criteria for your reference. So again, fully understanding the potential damage and theft of resources, understanding the need of evidence preservation, and we went over evidence preservation in previous lessons, of course. Now also service availability, right? So how network connectivities and service providers to external parties should maintain available, of course. It goes over the time and resources needed to implement this incident response strategy and how to effectively measure the effectiveness of the strategy, like, how to do actually full and partial containment within the organization, right? Also, how to measure the duration of the solution, right? So, like an emergency workaround to be removed in 4 hours, or temporary workarounds to remove in 2 weeks, or, whatever the case within the organization, of course, right? And also, of course, identifying how long does it take for you to identify the permanent solution for that security incident or for that problem. The postmortem is the last phase of the incident response process, and it includes things like lessons learned, how to use the collected incident data, and it also goes over evidence retention, right? So this special publication, right, so the NIST 800-61 also includes several questions that can be used as guidelines during the lessons learned meeting, and here I'm actually including them for your reference only.